and then we'll try. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for showing up. This is the first time I've ever spoken at a Moodle Moot, and my first ever Moodle Moot was last year at the AU one up in Cairns, which was a lot of fun, and I got to see a lot of people speak and a lot of really good presentations. So I thought now would be a good time to start giving back and show what I've learned from working at HQ. So I am a pro at Moodle HQ. I've been here for the last year and a bit. So before I came to Moodle, I studied a degree in computer science and games technology. So I thought it would be good to use what I've learned through my degree and apply it to concepts that are good for Moodles. So I have a bit of experience making educational games. My final year project at uni was an educational game, which was actually a really interesting experience, getting to learn what is good and what is bad, trying to gamify an educational concept. So the way I see it, when gamifying, there's this balance between the entertainment aspect and the educational aspect, as I'm sure you can imagine. So for us, we're probably primarily teachers, rather than game designers. So I find that when teachers try to gamify their course, oftentimes it can end up, not all the time, but it can end up a little bit gimmicky and not quite as effective as it could be. So that's one of the challenges that we have, is to try and make it both entertaining and educational. And I'll talk a little bit about methods that I like to use to ensure both sides of that scale are well met in our educational games. So the entertainment aspect increases the engagement and it keeps you coming back for more. So when you have a gamified course or an educational game, you can use aspects from games that are addictive or that make it really enjoyable. So it'll keep you coming back to study a bit more or learn a bit more, when otherwise you might have gotten bored and played a normal game, which is quite funny. So I find that this works really well when it comes to rote learning. That's something that I discovered while sorry, Mary Cooch just said that she can't hear. Is everyone able to hear? Cool. I hope that you can figure that out. So, yeah, I find it works quite well for to rote learning. So these things that you have to try and memorize, that's something that education is, it's just one of those pillars of education. You have to learn concepts by memorization. It often comes up when studying anything, really. There's all these concepts that you have to try and remember. And I find that it can be at times quite difficult to motivate students when it comes to that, because it can be quite boring. So I found when making my educational game that it works really well to motivate students to learn those concepts through memorization. Now, games are already educational. So even those games that are purely designed just to be fun, people who are playing them are already learning something. They're just not learning what we want to teach them. So if someone's in your class and off playing World of Warcraft, it's not really going to teach them whatever you're trying to teach them, right? But they are teaching them some things, whether that is economics with your real-time strategy games, or things like reaction time and dexterity for action games. So whenever someone's playing a game, they are learning something. And what's interesting, thinking about the fact that you're having to learn, whereas when you are in an educational environment, you are instantly thinking, all right, what's the next thing I need to learn so that I can do this assignment or what have you. But when you're playing a game, it sort of just happens naturally. You don't notice it. which is really interesting. When you first start playing a game, you can be quite bad at it, but just give it a little bit of time and you get better, as with anything else. So there is definitely that learning aspect in any game. Now, to show what I mean by this, I actually recently acquired, which is a good amount of fun I've found. But what I noticed is they're quite difficult to control. I have one that is completely manual, it's not automatic. So they're quite difficult to control. But I've noticed that all my friends who are gamers, who have experience using a gaming controller, are actually really good at controlling the quadcopter. But those that I know that aren't gamers struggle with it a lot and will crash frequently. So that kind of shows that even with games that are purely designed to be fun, you can learn real world skills, even if it's quite unlikely that they'll come up. So working at Moodle HQ, every few weeks we get to work on a project of our own choosing. So this is called a personal project week. And what I chose to do for my first project week and a couple of other ones after that was to work on an educational game. I found this would make good use of my previous studies, as well as trying to provide something that would be useful for people out there using Moodle like you. So my approach, now I talked before about that balance between entertainment and education. I found that Moodle is already something that is designed to educate. It's not designed from the ground up to be something that's fun. Yes, we want it to be easy to use so that it can be a good experience, but ultimately it's not a game really. So what I chose to do is take a popular game that has shown to be popular and fun time and time again, and try to pull it into the Moodle and educational space. So the game I chose was basically a space shooter game. Now, it might not be fun for everyone, but I found that it's actually quite to learn, although it can be difficult as well. So that's another thing that you do have to think about when creating games, is that there are some downsides to gamification, because it will really apply well to people who are gamers, or people who are experienced in whatever style of gamification you're choosing. It will really resonate well with them, and they will have a better learning experience as a result. However, if you choose something a little bit too gamey, it can actually alienate some students. So that's why I recommend trying to keep that balance between education and entertainment really well, because like I said, if it's too gamey, you might alienate some. They might not know how to play the game, and if it's an important part of your course, the downside is that some students might not do as well as others just because they're not experienced in games. So that's one downside of the plugin I ended up making. It is quite gamey, but I find that it's not so difficult. It alienates people, which is good. On the plugins database, it's actually had 755 downloads, which is quite impressive, because last time I looked there was only 200. So while I was busy working on other Moodle things, it gained quite a following. And it was really cool to see people playing it and using it for things. And what's great about the Moodle community is everyone sort of pitches in and tries to improve it however they can, which I found really cool. Someone sent me an email saying, "Oh, I've translated it all into Spanish." Now, I don't know Spanish, so I would never been able to do it myself. But now, if you want to play my game, you can do it even if you can only speak Spanish and don't speak English, which is great. It helps just make it a bigger, wider, more global experience, which is awesome. So as I was saying, I took this game concept, which is a shooter game, and I tried to make it as Moodly and educational as possible. So I started with something really fun and tried to make it educational. The other way around, start with something educational and try and make it entertaining. But I find, for me personally, that doesn't quite work as well, because you're always trying to make it somehow fun, whereas the educational aspect can actually fit really nicely into the game if you do it well. So what I did is I took something that everyone already has in their Moodle, which is, well, almost everyone has this in their Moodle. It's the question bank. It's used in the quiz module. So you add questions to it, and then when someone takes a quiz, they can, it loads all the questions from the question bank. So I took that and put it into my game, so that when someone downloads the Quiz Venture, which is the name of my plugin, when they download my plugin, they can put it in their Moodle site and pretty much get going straight away. Because I find with something that is not as core as having this plugin, you don't want to spend too much time on it if it's not going to like form the backbone of your course. So I wanted to make it nice and easy for someone just to add on, and it helps people that want to use it, and it doesn't require too much to set up. So I think I'm going to show a demo, but I'll have to share my desktop, which means if it starts getting laggy, just let me know. So here's the game. I hope you can somehow see it. So when playing this game, all these fits come down and they hold the correct and incorrect options for the questions given. So up the top is the name of the question, and each possible answer flies down as an enemy. And if you shoot the correct answer, the enemies will be destroyed, but if you shoot the incorrect answer, then your shot will be reflected back at you. So the question here is, can games provide any value beyond entertainment? Personally, I think that's true, but it is debatable, I suppose. So in shooting the correct answer, all the enemies died. So what is Moodle? Is it a content management system? Doesn't look like it. Learning management system? It's correct. So this is the other type of questions I created. You have to, this loads from the matching question tab in the question bank. So you have two possible answers, two things that you have, concepts that you have to match with each other. And there's a whole bunch of them, and you have to match the correct ones. So the way I made it is you shoot one answer, and then you have to shoot the corresponding answer, which is a different colored spaceship. And if you shoot both of them in a row, then they'll both get destroyed. So it really takes that educational aspect, is trying to match two concepts that are related together, and makes it into a game. So unfortunately, I've progressed too far through the game at the moment, so I'm going to lose if I try to do this. But I'll just play for a minute. Okay, so educational games, teach and entertain. Education teaches and games entertain. So you just have to shoot one and then match the other. Unfortunately, I'm quite bad at my own game. I might have to reduce the difficulty. Yes, there are plans for power-ups. I've got a few ideas out there. It's not my top priority making this game at the moment. I'm really keen for someone who is not me to come in and try and contribute, because it's all open source like Moodle itself. So what that means is anyone can come in and improve it, translate it like I was saying before, or add power-ups, add special cheat codes or anything. So with my game, it's not going to be an assessment. That's something that I am quite adamant about. And the reason why I don't believe it should be used for assessment is because it quite ends upon someone's gaming ability. Not so much, but if you're a better gamer, you'll be able to do it better than someone who's not. But that's not to say that gamification in general can't be used for assessment. You've just got to really think about who it's going to benefit and who's going to be better at it than not. So, what is it used for? If it's not used for assessment, what should we use it for? Well, personally, like I was saying before, it's really good for memorization. When I was developing the plugin, I had a question bank which I made, which was relating to musical notes and the timing of that. So that's something that I could never really remember when playing piano. So while I was developing the game, I was playing it and testing it, and it helped me to memorize what belongs to what note value, etc., etc. I also downloaded a course from another language, and it had some questions. However, I wasn't quite as good at that because it required prior knowledge of the language. A good point that Wendy brings up is that it's really good for geeks and nerds and such like that. So it just goes to show that there's all kinds of different markets you can put your gamification towards. I'm going to talk about another plugin in a minute that is slightly different, which might apply better to other people. But overall, I've had a good response to the plugin, which I'm quite happy with. And yeah, I'm happy with the result of what I was able to achieve with not too much time. So, yeah. The other games that are existing on Moodle, I'm not the first person to have this idea of putting games into Moodle. There are a few others out there, like the Exodus games. There's also mod_game, which is quite popular. And it uses similar ideas to me, but it's more of a puzzle type of game rather than an action game. So you get quiz questions and it becomes like a puzzle that you have to complete. There's also things like the ranking block, or a friend of mine from HQ made this thing called Block XP, or the level up block. And I heard some people talking about this earlier in the Moot, which is good to see people were trying to think of new ways to gamify their Moodles. It's a really good thing to see happening, because yeah, in this world that we currently live in, where there's so many distractions, we have to think about how we're going to keep our students engaged and come back for more and learning with the best experience. Now, gamification is not the only solution, and it doesn't even have to play a part. I really think that it's a wonderful tool that can be used to increase that engagement, which is kind of why I created it in the first place. I have heard of people using it with real students, which is really exciting for me, because I thought it would be something that's just a little bit of fun that everyone can gawk at, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't be used. But it's actually goes to show what good things can come from gamification, and that it does have uses out in the real world, which I knew to be true, but it's good to see it out in action. Yeah, that's mod game, one with hangman crosswords, blah, blah, blah. It's a good puzzle game. I actually had a good look at it when I started developing mine, and I wanted to make it, I wanted mine to not be the same as it or try to be better than it, because it might end up being worse, but I chose a completely different approach to increase the diversity of plugins that can be used for gamification. Yes, I'm going to officially go into question time at the moment. So if you have any questions, I'll try and read the chat for anything that I might have missed while demonstrating. Not that yet. So does anyone have any questions about gamification in general? As I was saying, I've studied it. I can give some insight from what I've learned through my studies and also while working on this plugin and working at Moodle. Right, I'll link to the code in the chat. And self now, if you want in the source code, if you're a programmer, I will get. And even if you're not so keen to get your hands dirty and start programming, there is an issue tracker there, as there is on most GitHub projects. So you can just add an issue and say, hey, I want this power up, or there's this bug where everything explodes. And then maybe next time I get some spare time, I'll have a look and try and fix the bugs. I've gotten a few bugs reports from various people, and I really appreciate them because it can help me make the plugin better. I've been able to fix quite a few, which is good. But obviously, I have a lot of commitment at Moodle HQ, so I don't always get time to work on this. The game does work on smartphones and tablets. The only problem I've seen is it can be quite hard to control, but I'm working on it. So it's a less fun experience, especially if you have a small phone, because you're trying to squeeze in and try and shoot the thing. But I did make sure it at least worked on the iPhone and Android. Last I checked, at least. What is XO? Oh, right. It's not too intensive, so it may work. It may be a little bit laggy, but I should try it on a lower spec computer. With regards to justifying gamification to adults, what's interesting to note is a lot of adults do play games, but the other thing is that gamification is kind of a scale. Like, it doesn't always have to end up being like my plugin, where it's an actual game. When it comes to things like the XP plugin, by completing quizzes and things like that, you earn experience and go up a leaderboard. Now, that might not work in all situations either, but you can sort of see how, depending on people's different personalities types, you can always gamify it somehow. And yeah, it's not always going to end up exactly like a game, but almost if it's somewhere between a game and just an ordinary Moodle course. The only two question types supported in my module are the matching question type and the multiple choice question type. I really want to add more because it's good fun and it makes the game more entertaining instead of just the same thing over and over. Obviously, the maths question could be a good one. There's all kinds of different options, and depending on the question type, it may be more or less fun. Could be quite entertaining. But yeah, I'm got a document where I'm brainstorming ideas for when I get time. Now, I'm just checking if I've missed any questions. Or how long does something like this take to build? To get it usable and fun, it took me about 4 days. I was using some new technologies I wasn't used to. But what's interesting about development is when you get something 90% of the way there, that's the easy part, and it actually takes longer and longer just to fix little glitches here and there. So I've spent a lot of more time on it trying to fix little bugs that are really hard to reproduce, etc. But when it comes to installing the plugin, you can pretty much just drop it in, select a question category, and then you're good to go, which I'm quite proud of. There's no data produced from the game yet. Like, there's not even high scores at the moment. That's something that I'd like to add. Obviously, we're gonna have to think about what's going to be most relevant and most useful. I like the fact that corporate participants like leaderboards. It's a good point. In my experience, comparison can be something that is a little bit like people can get uncomfortable with it. But if it works well in the environment that you're in, it can actually be a really powerful tool. Yeah, having badges for achievements, like if you get a lot of enemies in a row, would be really cool. Or like if you manage to get to the end of the game, things like this. Yeah, I hope making some plugin that's a little bit off what most plugins are going to be. I hope that encourages some creativity in the plugin space. Maybe people making more games or more things that they ordinarily wouldn't have thought of being able to fit in Moodle. But yeah, some new options. I'm not sure about other activities for gamification. I know that it's possible to gamify the whole of Moodle, so you're including each activity, which is a really cool concept. One of the guys here at HQ was talking to me about making the whole Moodle experience sort of gamified, so it's like an adventure trying to get to this or that. Obviously, that can work really well or not so well depending on how it's done. But yeah, I find that the quiz works really well for this because it's already kind of gamified, where you get each question at a time and you have those options to have immediate feedback or delayed feedback. Things like the assignment could be a really bad one to try and gamify. It's like, oh, can you type this assignment quick enough? Or it could be something that is not that fun. But I'd be really interested to see what ideas other people have, if you have any, for gamifications of other activities. I'd like to put multiplayer in it. That could be something that could be good fun. Things like when you're in a group with people, you can all play the game together. Yeah, because having that interaction with other people makes games more fun. The lesson activity is a really good example of something that can be gamified. It shares a lot of similarities with the quiz activity. I could imagine the lesson activity being a really good RPG, like trying to walk through places and you pick up a book and it shows you information and you have to walk left or right to choose where to go next in the lesson. Yeah, pick the lock to get into your course. That could be quite funny. Yeah, having groups in your games would be quite good. There's a lot of ideas we can come up with here. What's interesting about the completion settings and conditional availability is you can actually, in core Moodle without any plugins, create something quite similar to a game experience. But obviously that may be a little bit time consuming. Yep, Dungeons and Dragons could work really well with the lesson module, especially. Oh, I like the idea of user-generated questions in the games. I actually hadn't seen that plugin yet, I don't think. Yeah, that's really cool. Should give it a go. It'd be nice to have something out there online where you can add questions and people can learn based on what you know, and everyone can play each other's games and learn cool facts and interesting information, new concepts. I'm not sure where the best place to talk about this after the iMoot is. It would be interesting to have people come to my course and talk about it in the discussion there, but obviously after the iMoot that will die down quite a bit. On moodle.org is a good one, but it might have to just be one discussion thread there. But it would be interesting to have people send their ideas. Yeah, I think somewhere in the plugins forum would be good. But there's other things like, instead of making a gamification plugin, just using what's already in Moodle to gamify your course. That could work well as well. Yeah, that could be interesting, having an idea, maybe something like Clash of Clans, where you can steal points from other students in the class if they haven't been online in a while. That could keep people coming back to the Moodle course, because it shows that people who come to the Moodle more often tend to be the ones that get better grades. So it could be a nice motivating factor to get people to come back so their points don't get stolen. Only one student gets an A. Now that could cause some arguments, I think. Ooh, there's already a thread. That's really cool. Ah, yes, and QuizVenture has a post. Yes, integrating lesson and multi-user dungeons could be quite good. Because that would apply well for people who aren't just gamers, but readers, I find, tend to like those kinds of games, especially since it's text-based. It's just like an interactive book. I like the idea of having people like meeting in an actual dungeon room and trying to decide which is the correct answer, which way they should go. Like if there's a question based on the course material, they'd have to discuss it there just to get through to the next part of the game. That would work really well for people who are studying externally, because it's a good way to have that kind of physical experience, but not really, but duplicating that physical experience of spending time with students in person. Is there any other questions or ideas for gamification? I like this discussion about how to make games. It's quite inspiring. Yes, thank you for staying up to listen to the presentation. Yes, calculator games are something that is a little bit before my time, but is a really cool concept. But yeah, anything can run on a calculator, definitely can run on Moodle. Thanks, Aaron. Is my time about up, Wendy?
Yeah, I was just about to jump in here and say thank you so much, John. That was fantastic, especially your first presentation. I'm sure the first of many. And if any of you want to see more of John, you can come to the Australian Moodle Week. He'll be there with us, and you're able to see him do some more stuff over there. John, that was absolutely fantastic. And of course, don't forget, you can continue these chats on the forum, in the iMoot forums, and you can have a chat with John about them there. I'm going to stop the recording in a couple of minutes, but you're welcome to stay in the room if you want to chat for a bit longer. It's up to you guys, but just this is a formal thank you to John. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Wendy.